Well, the group, as you know, is reviewing the work of the ACP itself to come up with recommendations as to how the ACP can function after 2020 when the Cotonou Agreement, which we have with the EU, expires. So what next for the ACP group of countries? So there has been a lot of soul searching that we have been going through as to, what is the essence of the ACP that we want going forward? What are the kinds of values that we have in common that we want to retain? What is it that we think we can achieve going forward? Recognizing the huge diversity that we have within the ACP itself. We have small island states, as you know. We have huge landlocked countries. We have least developed countries. We have countries in conflict. And of course, we have middle-income countries as well. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of solution, but how can we find commonality among each other as to what is the essence of what we need going forward? What I think has come out of the deliberations is that we want to ensure that the ACP articulates its position clearly as to what it wants, and then says, now, what are the partnerships that can add value to this position that we want going forward? So rather than being dependent on the EU going forward, we want to have our own, create our own vision for ourselves, and then craft the partnership in a way that works for both of us, a win-win. We have to be, I think, a little truthful about why the ACP exists, and the ACP exists to a large extent because of the historical reasons, a relationship we have had with Europe, and that was the big common denominator between all of us. So if you actually look at the development which has taken place, particularly in trade, we have huge trade barriers between ourselves, and we have negotiated much better terms and agreements with our partners in the European Union than we have with our neighbors. So because we've been focused on this north-south relationship, we have forgotten to a large extent what value we can actually gain for ourselves by creating intra-regional relationships. So I think there is actually a huge potential going forward if we can break down the barriers between our neighbors to then begin to look at what is it that we can gain from each other. I'm from Jamaica, and just 2 months ago, there was a group of Pacific women in Jamaica meeting with Caribbean women, talking about what their challenges have been and what some of the, what are some of the innovative solutions that have been brought up both in the Caribbean and the Pacific. So there is this interchange, which is a nascent kind of thing happening. And I have been talking with certain other ambassadors in the Pacific talking about sport. There is a huge thing in the Pacific about rugby. Well, in the Caribbean, it's cricket, it's track and field, but sports business is something that the both of us should be talking about. The same thing is true in terms of when we start to look at tourism. Tourism, we have much that we can offer Africa because the Pacific and the Caribbean are far advanced in tourism. So we being the small island states, have something to bring to the table to big Africa. And I think that, in fact, there is a lot that can happen if we begin to look at ourselves differently. So one of the things that we will be examining here is, what is this commonality that we can bring out which can really help us to grow and become part of the global trading system. 80 countries, that's about what we are. I think the 80 countries, again, I go back to the diversity in terms of development, in terms of cultural and economic development. I think we have a lot to bring to the table, because one thing we must learn from the first set of MDGs which have been put in place is to learn from our mistakes that we made when we designed the MDGs, and to say, let us now design a set of actionable, measurable kind of goals that we're going to set ourselves, which are realistic. And I think that we have to think about resources. I'm a great believer in setting goals that can actually be financed. If we set goals that are not financed, then we always have disappointments. So we have to be realistic about what can be achieved, what resources we have to deliver on that, and that doesn't stop us from being aspirational. But I think we have to take stock of the situation that we are in and ensure that these goals that we set are realistic for the levels of development that we have right across the ACP. I am a huge proponent of women economic development. I have spent a lot of time thinking about it and working on the economic empowerment of women. My contribution to the EPG group is that we do cast out a very important niche for women in the work of the ACP going forward. One of our primary goals is the eradication of poverty. If 70% of the world's poor are women, and we don't address women's issues straight up, then I think we will never eradicate poverty. So we must understand what it is we're going after, and target the areas where we know that we have to make a change. And that's what I think I bring to the table, my sort of pragmatic approach to only doing things that you know you can have an impact on, because you've thought it through, you understand where you're going, and you understand what the issues are that you bring to the table. So I'm hoping I can make a good contribution to the EPG going forward.